Antrum, the deadliest film ever made. This is yet another faux documentary style film, but kind of with a little bit of a twist. So, what Antrum, the deadliest film ever made, or whatever, is about. So, the film starts as if the Antrum movie is a real film that exists. And they talk about it being this film that everyone who's watched it has died. Any critics that have gotten a hold of it, the showings that it's had, like the theater burnt down while people were watching the movie. The movie is cursed, and you will die if you watch it. This is not new. You know, we've definitely seen stuff like this before. The film that drives you mad if you watch it kind of thing, like Cigarette Burns, John Carpenter's thing, which they actually mention in the film. They actually mention a few films like that. So I thought that was kind of cool. But where the twist is that typically with something like this, they would say like the footage was lost and we have a couple clips from it, and they would have like doctors and they'd have, you know, supernatural experts and mediums and stuff being interviewed throughout the majority of the documentary. But in this, it's really just like 5 minutes of setup, then they show you Antrum in its completion. And it even has like a disclaimer in the beginning, like they're warning you that you could die if you watch it. I'm still alive. I watched the movie, so I think so. A couple questions were posed here while I was watching this. Now, the movie Antrum itself, which we're going to get into, I'll tell you really quick what the movie Antrum is actually about, the movie within the movie, the actual movie. A young girl and a young boy, they go out into the woods to dig a hole to hell because the sister, I think, has convinced this little boy that they can pull someone up out of hell that's died that they know. And so they believe him, so they go there with this book and they try to dig their way to hell. Which is a cool concept. I really like the concept a lot. And the film Antrum itself is a pretty good homage to like 70s kind of satanic cult films. Even though this isn't a cult film, it just kind of has that feel to it. It's got that late 70s demonic exploitation feel to it. The casting is pretty good. The little kid legitimately looks like he's out of the 70s. The haircut is like perfect. The clothing, all of that stuff. The film stock itself looks really good. It looks old. Like if you were to show me this movie without the, you know, the book ending of the it's the deadliest film ever made, blah, blah, blah. If you were to show me this movie and tell me it was filmed in the 70s, I'd probably believe you. I'd probably, like, watching it, I wouldn't question it throughout because it really does feel like that, which I feel like a lot of films try to do and almost never, ever are able to capture it completely. There's only been a few films ever, like Ty West's House of the Devil or something like that. Like, it's pretty rare that a film is able to capture that actual feeling, the film stock and the look of characters and all of that. It's super, super rare. So kudos to them for that. And Antrum itself it's fine. It's watchable. It's you know, the plot is fairly thin, but it's mostly about the atmosphere, the imagery. Now, in the movie, they have a lot of like subliminal imagery that keeps popping up on the screen, but it's supposed to be so fast that it's like one of those Tyler Durden inserting a cock into the middle of like Snow White or Cinderella or whatever movie he did it in. But it's so apparent, and it was annoying me throughout. And then at the end of the movie, they're like, "Oh, you won't even know if you saw them." You know, they'll be like pointing this out, like, "Oh, did you notice them?" And it's like, dude, I could not notice them. There's like pentagrams that come up on the screen, like that are just kind of like cut into the footage, stuff like that. It was just kind of annoying. Plus, they insert random violence in the movie that isn't part of the actual film. It's like added inserted violence from other stuff, like snuff film type stuff, I guess, and they explain that in there, that was randomly just spliced in, and that the way that this even got to them was that like the devil was submitting it to film festival. I think what hurts this film is the gimmick. Like, I think that if Antrum was released as a 70s throwback, like a 70s demonic throwback film, I think it's actually decent. I don't think it's great, but I do think it's pretty fine. Like, it's watchable. It's good. It's got a good atmosphere. I liked it. I liked Antrum. I didn't like the gimmick around it because I think the gimmick around it hurts the movie. I do. I think that it hypes it up so dramatically. You know, they're doing the Blair Witch Project. The three young filmmakers going to the woods of Burkittsville, Maryland. You know, a year later, their footage was found, whatever. Like, that sets up so much expectation. Like, people going to like, oh man, this movie must be insane. And their brain gets so, like, overwhelmed with expectation that nothing can ever live up to it. So I guess my first question would be, was this originally intended to be the way it was? Did someone go film Antrum and then you know, some studio or something, somebody came up with the wise idea after, and wise, I don't think it was wise. Although it got more attention. I mean, giving it that title, people are either watching it or not, so I don't know. But I guess as the viewer, as somebody who loves horror, and I can tell you what works for me and what doesn't, I think the gimmick hurts it, but more people saw it because of it, so I don't know. Was it the right decision? At the end of the day, I don't know. But for me personally, was this film meant to be like this from the beginning? And if so, would this film be better without it? Which I've kind of already spoke on a bunch. And in my opinion, yes. I'll be curious on your guys' opinion on it. So, yeah, I didn't really care for the wraparound stuff, explaining Antrum and whatnot. But outside of that, yeah, Antrum itself is a decent watch. Like, I almost feel, and take out the inserted random violence stuff, and take off the subliminal messagery, like all that kind of stuff. Like, get rid of all that shit and just air Antrum as it's shot, and it's actually decent. So there you go. Not great, but and I see that it's getting a lot of hate, but I think the hate is mostly coming from built up expectation from the beginning, the title, all that stuff. So if you're a 70s throwback kind of person and you want to see a movie that kind of nails the subgenre and the time period, I think this film does a damn good job. So anyway, let me know. Adios.